Hi, everybody. This is Arlene Peck, and I'm here to welcome you today to my show, Wow, It's Arlene. And I have a man, when they say this man needs no introduction, it's like silly almost to do it anymore because he's been on my show so many times, I've run out of things to introduce him with. He's got so many things he's done. I think if Mr. Allen sat next to the Pope, people would say, who is that man next to Steve Allen? So I'll just go ahead without any other introductions, just say, here's Steve.
Here he is.
You're here. You've been on my show so many times.
Yes.
Is this, what, 8, 9, whatever?
But who counts?
I'm delighted. I think it's wonderful.
I do too.
I mean, so I just sit there and I say, we're not getting older, we're getting better.
It may be so construed, yes.
And it's not easy being a sex god at your stage, or my stage.
Well, I haven't been on the stage in some time, but be that as it may.
Stage of life. I'm always asking you, like your opinions and different things on your music and you know, what you think of today's music versus the other music, the good music. But I mean, today I want to focus a little bit on your books.
All right.
Because you have written so many books. I'm reading, in fact, actually I'm reading 2 right now.
Thank you.
Well, one I haven't started. It was another mystery that I got. Thank God your office is so sweet.
Wake Up to Murder, is that the one you're referring to?
Wake Up to Murder, yes. Mm-hmm. But I just finished But Seriously, Folks, Steve Allen Speaks.
Oh, but seriously, Steve Allen Speaks is mine.
Yes.
The editors,
does close count?
The editors went to great trouble to insert all those words, so we might as well kick them in.
Well, you've written, what, 45 books? It's hard to remember. I think I've read them all.
The 49th will be published around now. It's a new mystery for the same publisher, Kensington. It's titled Die Laughing, and the milieu this time is the comedy business.
Well, you know, it's interesting you should say that because in the comedy, I remember some of your titles. You've written books, How to Be Funny.
Yes, and make them laugh.
And how to make them. Can you actually teach people how to be funny?
Yes and no. That's not an evasive answer. It's just that each word has to be qualified. Yeah, there are tricks of the comedy trade. You could also write a book about how to do brain surgery and make a lot of important points, but it by no means follows that everybody who read the book would get at your personal brain or mine. Just so, well, I might be able to give you, let's say, 114 practical bits of experience and information that would be helpful if you ever became a comic. It cannot just of itself make you funny. It is assumed, therefore, that if you have some little innate gift, some mysterious glint in your eye that other people tend to laugh at when you talk, then the book can be of a good deal of help to you.
It's like being a little bit pregnant. You know, either you do or you don't.
It may be so, but the similarity is beyond me.
Well, I mean, someone's a little bit pregnant. You know, it's
you mean a little bit funny?
Yeah, a little bit.
No,
either they're funny or they have the talent to be funny, or you can't teach
I
it.
wish it were so. Then we could clear out the industry in a day or two, and it needs it. But no, there are some people who are just a little bit funny, and there are some people who are very funny. And unfortunately, some in the first category also become very successful. That's annoying.
Like Andrew Dice Clay, one of your favorite people.
No, he is funny. I have no problem with his funniness. His problem, to the extent that he might perceive he has one, is that he gets his chief laughs by talking dirty, to use very plain language. But it's a free country. If there's an audience for that, and there certainly is, better health to him.
Yeah, but you know, the days of the good old comedians. Well, did it happen? Like people can't make fun of themselves anymore. Everything's politically correct or incorrect.
Well, nobody ever did much make fun of themselves except a few professional comedians who chose to make the rest of us laugh by doing that. Classic instance would be Jack Benny. Going back to the old Jack Benny radio show in the days before television in the 1940s. If you look now at an old Jack Benny script from that period, you see that most of the jokes were delivered by other people who might not have been funny themselves at all. His announcer, his singer, his band leader, his wife. But the jokes, I repeat, were about Jack, and they were critical of him. Oddly enough, there was never a joke that was critical of the real Jack Benny, but there were a lot of jokes that were critical of the imaginary.
Cheap. And
yes,
all those.
Jack Benny in reality was generous. His character, make-believe character, which looked and sounded like the real one, was nevertheless totally imaginary. It was cheap, it was conceited, it lied about its age. It was like a comic strip character.
I met him once. I was very, very young, and I was in Miami at the Fontainebleau Hotel, and he was standing there, and I was really like a little girl. I said, "Oh my God, there's Jack Benny!" And I got so excited, I couldn't think of what to say.
What did he say?
Well, I went over to him, and I didn't know what to say, so I said, "Pardon me, do you know where the restroom is?" He said, "Right down there, to the left." And I'm like, thank you. And that was my extent with Jack Benny. But I remember I actually...
That is better than just staring at him and not conversing at all.
No, I wanted to say something, except then I had a problem with having the nerve. Those days are long gone, but I was a little girl then. And another thing I would ask you, as far as comedians, who was like me, because you work with everybody. Boy, you know where all the bodies are buried. Oh, speaking of that, with the books. I'll go back to the other.
All right.
No, because you do all these mystery books. I have read so many of them.
Thank you.
And what's the new one you're working on?
Well, I'm not working on one at the moment. I just finished working on one. That's the one I mentioned a few minutes back, called Die Laughing. It's about the comedy business. And depending on when this interview was seen, it could have been out 3 weeks ago,
Or 3 years
it'll,
ago,
it'll
yeah.
come out in a year and a half, whatever. But ask for it. By the way, one of the oddest things, Arlene, that I find, and I guess other writers must have the same experience, you go on a program, yours, The Tonight Show, doesn't matter what program, and your purpose for showing up is to talk about your book, and you do, and everybody's happy about that. And then you
I think
actually...
you showed up because you liked me.
We can get back to that. But to make the brazen attempt to complete my point, the reaction for the next few days is, hey, I heard you talking to so-and-so about your new book. Where can I buy that? I've never understood that question. I think
Yeah.
I dealt with it in one of my earlier books called Dumph. For books, folks, you go to a bookstore. How about that for a surprise? Or a library where it's free. I would not waste time hanging around meat markets or Midas muffler shops. They have very few books for sale. But bookstores are where it's at. Now you might say, oh yeah, wise guy, well I went to a bookstore and they didn't have your book. They didn't have Bertrand Russell's or Donald Duck's other books too. And that is very likely true, but it's a problem for which there is a snap solution. All you have to say is, oh, what a pity, you're all out, or they haven't come in yet. Well, nevertheless, I'd like to order that book. And they will immediately write down your name and your address and phone number, and they'll call you when it comes in.
Let's say with the library, when I've tried to reach, get one of your books or something, and just fill it out, and if they didn't have it, they got it.
Yes.
Also, with the books, one question, because you have Jane in them so many times. Well, she's always in your books. You miss
Yeah,
your
that
books.
no, she actually is in very few of my books, but she's in all the murder mysteries.
That's what I mean, the murder mysteries. And,
okay.
and everyone I've ever read, there was your wife, Jane Meadows, because they're sort of like a truism, not truism, mysteries. And did she ever help you with any of them?
No, she keeps me alive while I'm doing them, but she doesn't have no part of the writing. But that idea, I cannot take credit for. It's a marvelous idea. Because I didn't create it, I can praise it. It was suggested to us by the publisher. They came to me, it must be about 10 years ago now, and they said, we have in mind bringing out a series of light comic murder mysteries. And we know that you've written some novels and you write all kinds of stuff, and we'd like you to write it, partly because our gimmick is that the two leading characters will be you and your real-life wife, Jane Meadows.
Yeah.
So it seemed like a cute idea. One immediately thinks of the old Thin Man movies with
Right.
William Powell and Myrna Loy. And then there may have been others of that sort, Mr. and Mrs. North or whatever. But anyway, that is the gimmick. It's their gimmick, and I've had great fun with it.
Well, she's an amazing woman, your wife, anyway. I mean,
She is, yes.
what's it like being married to the real Jane Meadows?
It's
I
never...
know she got top billing when you go to your office. It's Meadow Lane. She gets top billing there, so I figured, does it carry on? How is she as a real life person?
Well, she's pretty much as she seems to be. There's much more to her than that, of course. She's very ladylike and highly intelligent. I don't know what her IQ is, but I'm sure it exceeds my own. She's funny in a non-intentional way. She never purposely does jokes. I shouldn't say never, because everybody does some jokes. But she never tries to get laughs, but she gets screams, especially from those who know her well. To use that dumb old word, she's a real character. There aren't many women like her, and I would say that even if I weren't married to her or didn't like her. It's not praise, it's just a fact, like saying she has red hair. She is a product of a New England upbringing. She's born in China, as you may know.
I knew that, yeah.
Her mother and father were
Raised by missionaries.
Missionaries, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, her mind is sort of back in 1917, and
Oh gosh, she'll hate you for that.
no, she's never objected to my saying it before. I would be surprised if she started now.
Keeping in mind they didn't get married in those years. I mean, it was her mind is there, not the body.
No, that's in Van Nuys.
Yes.
But be that as it may, and I doubt that it is, because she's in a sense out of tune with her times, many of her reactions are automatically comic. So hooray for that, since I do comedy for a living.
Well, it's funny though, when I was going over some of your books, and I had the question about, was Jane involved with any of it, but your titles are absolutely, let me see, I have some of these titles. A nuclear war would just ruin my day.
Oh, I see.
The Confessions of a Tortilla Priest. I mean, where do you come up with these titles?
I didn't. I'll be glad to explain where those titles come from. I had nothing to do with creating them. You're referring now to, not the murder mysteries, but another one of my books, which we...
But seriously, Steve Allen Speaks His Mind.
Yes.
Many of your books, Dummeth, I mean, so many of them. Dummeth, how do you come up with a name like Dummeth? It's
At the risk of returning to the point,
yeah.
The titles you just...
On my show, we don't do that too much.
Well,
you should know after 8, 9 shows. Okay.
What makes horse race. It's one of the things it does. Another point is that the titles you referred to are indeed real, but I had nothing to do with them except that I wrote introductions to books so titled, written by other people. So the first section of the book, called But Seriously, consists of forewords to 8 or 9 or 10 other books by other authors, which have now been gathered together and put in the front of that particular book. So that's where those titles come from.
But you're you're always, where's your recorder? I guarantee your recorder's somewhere in a... See, I've never seen this man all the years. I've probably known you, 15 years now or something?
I wouldn't be surprised.
And the first time I met you, you had this little thing you were walking around with, and every time I have seen you since.
Yes.
The constant...
I'm very dissatisfied with my memory. Whether it is just average, I don't really know, because I've never been anybody else. Had I ever been Donald Duck, I would be able to say, my memory's much better now than when I was Donald. But I've only been me, so I don't know.
My mother said if I was a twin, she would have drawn the other one. The other one, which is not a nice thing to tell your child, but I was not an easy child to raise, I was told.
I am speechless.
So, continue.
On what?
About you can't remember.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, because of my unhappiness with my memory,
Yes.
I use this as sort of a memory aid. And for the last 20 years or so, I've done all my writing by me. In case people think this is a shaver, no, it's a tape recorder, folks. Those are probably the same people who don't know they have to go to bookstores for books. But anyway, the virtue of this, as compared to the conventional sitting at a typewriter or writing in longhand, is that I make notes much longer with this, because we all tend to speak at length.
When you're driving, when you're...
assuming we are articulate at all and have anything worth talking about. Whereas in the old days when I used the back of the proverbial envelope. By the way, there's a little store in Santa Monica called the Proverbial Envelope Store. You can go there if you need those. But
proverbial envelope, yeah.
Thank you.
Help you out whenever I can.
All right. Anyway, in that method, which is still very common all over the world, has these outnumbered by a long shot, I tended to write either 3 or 4 cryptic words, or sometimes 2 or 3 sentences, which I could scarcely read when I put the jacket on again a week later. So this is much superior.
Well, your handwriting, you should have been, actually, I'm looking at some of you wrote me out, because your handwriting, you could have been a doctor.
There is a great tendency toward illegibility. However, I don't know if other people have 5 or 6 separate handwritings. I do, literally.
I know, it's funny, my kid can sign my signature better than my signature.
Really?
Yes, and so she has, like, carte blanche, she does my books and things. And
Your kid is under arrest.
Well, she got so mad at me recently because she sends me an email. I was off in Israel, and she sends me an email. She says, "Mom, you changed your handwriting." And actually, I was